Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with the keywords that made headlines this week. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung and Chinese President Xi Jinping have agreed to push for a full restoration of bilateral ties as the two leaders held summit talks in Beijing amid heightened geopolitical tensions. From AI to humanoid robots, this year's Consumer Electronics Show showcased the technology shaping the future, with Korean companies playing a key role. Rather than sending a warning, Washington's capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro may be emboldening the Kremlin, strengthening its belief that nuclear weapons guarantee the regime's survival. President Lee Jae-myung has returned home after wrapping up a 4-day state visit to China. But before he left, he held a press briefing with the presidential press. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin has the details.
A trip with even more progress than anticipated. That's how President Lee Jae-myung described his 4-day state visit to China during a surprise press conference on Wednesday.
교감도 많이 이루어졌던 것 같고 또 예를 들면 대립할 수 있는 사안들에 대해서도 아주 원만하게 해소할 수 있는 길을 찾아냈던 것 같습니다.
High on the agenda was North Korea. President Lee said peace and stability on the Korean peninsula were among the key issues discussed in depth with President Xi Jinping.
그래서 우리는 노력하지만 지금 현재는 완전히 차단된 상태라서 소통 자체가 안 되니까 중국이 중재자 역할을 평화의 중재자 역할을 좀 해주면 좋겠다 이렇게 얘기했습니다.
President Xi responded that Beijing would make efforts in that direction, but stressed the need for patience, given how hostile inter-Korean relations have become in recent years. For a nuclear-free Korean peninsula, Lee mentioned he asked China to help convey his message that a more realistic approach would be to first stop Pyongyang's nuclear program development in exchange for corresponding measures. When asked whether he sees signs of improvement in China's unofficial restrictions on Korean cultural content, including K-dramas and K-pop, the president answered that there was a clear expression of intent.
석자 얼음이 한꺼번에 언 것도 아닌데 또 한꺼번에 다 녹겠냐. 또 과일은 때가 되면 익어서 떨어진다. 이렇게 직접 시 주석께서 말씀하셨는데 그게 정확한 표현인 것 같습니다.
He added that he emphasized the importance of easing such restrictions to address growing anti-China sentiment in South Korea. Regarding China's installation of large structures, including aquaculture facilities, in Seoul and Beijing's jointly managed maritime area in the West Sea, working-level talks will begin to clarify where the boundary is in the shared zone. President Lee says he and President Xi have agreed to meet in person at least once a year. With China set to host the 2026 APEC leaders meeting in Shenzhen, attention is now turning to whether the two leaders will hold another bilateral meeting this year. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, Shanghai.
The summit between President Lee Jae-myung and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing focused on strengthening bilateral ties and achieving peace on the Korean peninsula. Our senior Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min has more.
The summit in Beijing began with the red carpet treatment and a 21-gun salute as President Lee Jae-myung was given an official welcome by his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. During their 90-minute-long talks on Monday, the South Korean leader vowed to consolidate the Seoul-Beijing strategic partnership and make it irreversible.
이번 정상회담은 2026년을 한중 관계 전면 복원의 원년으로 만들 중요한 계기가 될 것입니다.
The sentiment was echoed by the Chinese leader.
As friends and neighbors, there should be more frequent visits between China and South Korea, and the two countries should communicate more actively.
High on the agenda was resuming dialogue with North Korea.
한반도 평화를 위해 실현 가능한 대안을 함께 모색하겠습니다. 번영과 성장의 기본적 토대인 평화에 양국이 공동 기여할 수 있도록.
Amid complicated geopolitics, she noted the two countries fighting together in the past against Japan's colonialism in the early 20th century.
The two countries should firmly stand on the right side of history and make the choices that are strategically right.
And according to China's Xinhua News, Xi called for the need to work together to oppose protectionism and practice true multilateralism, apparently with Beijing's rivalry with Washington in mind. After the talks, more than a dozen MOUs were signed, including on climate, digital technology, and intellectual property rights. Also on the table were sensitive issues, such as China's unauthorized steel structures in the West Sea.
As the maritime boundary in the West Sea has not been clearly demarcated, the two sides agreed to hold vice ministerial talks within this year to discuss defining the boundary.
On the cultural front, the leaders have agreed to gradually expand exchanges, beginning in areas including the board game Go and soccer, amid China's unofficial ban on Korean cultural content. Also suggested was China expanding its delegation of pandas. Other focuses were addressing negative sentiment and hate speech targeting each other's countries, as well as expanding cooperation on investment and supply chains. Yi was the first state guest to be hosted by Xi in the new year, and it was their second summit in around 2 months.
While their first engagement 2 months ago was more of a get-to-know session, their focus this time was taking a step further to strengthen bilateral cooperation and deepen personal bond. Yu Jung-min, Arirang News, Beijing. Sometimes a single photo can capture what official statements cannot. A selfie shared by the first couples of South Korea and China is drawing attention for the warm atmosphere surrounding the summit in Beijing. For more, here's our correspondent Song Yujin.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. This selfie of the first couples of South Korea and China offers a glimpse into the warm and friendly atmosphere of Monday's summit between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Xi Jinping. The photo was taken with a Xiaomi smartphone that President Xi had gifted to President Lee during his state visit to South Korea last November.
통신보안은 잘 됩니까? 정확하게 요명 호mer.
This time, Yi returned the gesture. He presented Xi with a painting depicting a family of qilins, a mythical creature in East Asian tradition, symbolizing good fortune, prosperity, and wise leadership. Yi also gave Xi a framed work of art featuring a gold leaf dragon motif long associated with authority and majesty. For First Lady Peng Liyuan, South Korea prepared a dorige, a traditional Korean accessory that hangs off a hanbok and a skincare device, reflecting her interest in fashion and beauty. The summit itself lasted for 90 minutes, longer than initially scheduled. National Security Advisor Wi Song-rak said the two leaders engaged in candid and in-depth discussions. That was followed by a state dinner where a band from the Chinese People's Liberation Army performed songs from both countries.
The two leaders resumed their conversation left unfinished 2 months ago in an amicable atmosphere.
The First Ladies also met separately over tea on the same day. Their conversation unfolded naturally, with both sharing artistic backgrounds. First Lady Kim Hae-kyung as a pianist and First Lady Peng as a soprano.
It's such a pleasure to meet you here in Beijing. I'm actually a longtime fan of you.
Kim later asked for Peng's interest in resuming the Korea-China Song Festival, which was last held in 2015, to which Peng called it a good suggestion.
So with the main event of his state visit, the South Korea-China summit, now concluded, President Lee will travel to Shanghai on Tuesday, after wrapping up his stay in Beijing with meetings with China's second and third highest-ranking officials, Li Qiang and Zhao Leji. Song Yujin, Arirang News, Beijing.
This year's Consumer Electronics Show was dominated by artificial intelligence and robotics, with Korean companies also standing out. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon was on the ground and brings us the highlights.
Meet Atlas. Hyundai Motor Group's Boston Dynamics unveiled this humanoid robot to kick off CES 2026. It drew attention as it resembles the body of a human being, but its limbs move much more freely. The car maker is focusing on robots, specifically physical AI, as the next chapter of its business.
Robots equipped with physical AI. Robots that perceive the world like we do and work responsibly for us and with us. This is technology that is built for humanity. Technology that supports us, extends our capabilities, makes our work safer, and in some cases more meaningful.
And Hyundai also won the Best of Innovation award with its Mobed. The autonomous one can deliver items up to 47 kilograms. Another key Korean company in physical AI is Doosan Robotics. Together with Maple Advanced Robotics Inc., its Scan and Go robot won awards in both AI and robotics, the definition of physical AI. It moves autonomously and scans surfaces to identify areas that need work. Here is how the company explained the technology.
So what we're accomplishing with our physical AI is we're giving the ability for the robots to see, think, and act. So the robot is able to see with our 3D vision. So just like a person would, it's able to take a decision based on the meaningful robot movement with our physical AI that's embedded into the system, and finally do the work.
And this robot by the company is for sorting out parcels and organizing storage.
I'm going to put in Arirang. Now this robot finds the block with the correct letters and completes the word.
And here at CES, because physical AI requires complex hardware, component makers are also gaining attention, including companies that make the sensors or develop AI software to process data. I spoke to one company that provides the LiDAR sensors for robots and vehicles. After attending CES for a decade in smaller booths, the company finally secured a booth on the main show floor this year, citing the rise of physical AI as perfect timing.
Beyond existing cameras actually capturing 3D spatial data, I believe LiDAR is the new core of the physical AI era. In that sense, as a core sensor for physical AI, it is truly an honor and great to be able to exhibit right here in the center of the show.
As for South Korean companies, while physical AI is not yet a standalone award category, 6 South Korean companies were explicitly identified as winners in the robotics category, or for robotic solutions centered on this new technology. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News, Las Vegas.
As South Korea steps into 2026, several economic policy updates promise to reshape the daily lives of many in Korea. Park Jun-an has more on these changes.
The Ministry of Economy and Finance last week distributed an annual booklet titled What is Changing from 2026, focusing on major economic reforms. With the collaboration of numerous agencies, the policy changes focus on easing family burdens, boosting opportunities for young adults, and enhancing the level of welfare. The minimum wage this year has risen to 10,320 Korean won per hour, a 2.9% increase from last year's 10,031. This change for a full-time worker who works 40 hours a week will add at least 60,000 won per month to their wages, helping offset rising living costs amid inflation. Also, the median income benchmark used for welfare calculations has jumped 6.51% for a 4-person household to roughly 6.49 million won a month. This is the steepest hike since the system's inception, meaning more families qualify for benefits like basic living allowances. For instance, a single-person household's maximum livelihood benefits increased from last year's 765,000 won to 821,000 won, providing stronger support for those who need assistance. On pensions, national pension premiums will rise from last year's 9% to the current 9.5% of income. The pension contribution will gradually increase year by year by an annual 0.5 percentage points until hitting 13% by 2033. The government has said that this aims to sustain the national pension system's long-term outlook. However, higher contributions could cause a slight dip in workers' paychecks. Offsetting this, the income replacement rate is set to rise from 41.5% to 43% when recipients begin receiving their pension at retirement. What is called the 13th month's salary refers to the annual year-end tax settlement. There are 2 effective ways to reduce final tax liabilities, with eligible taxpayers on average receiving 700,000 to 800,000 won per adjustment. The first is an income deduction, which reduces your taxable income before the tax rate is applied. For example, if you earn 50 million won and qualify for a 5 million won deduction for housing savings, your taxable income drops to 45 million won, lowering your overall tax bill indirectly based on your tax bracket. A tax credit, on the other hand, subtracts directly from your calculated tax amount. Let's say your tax owed is 3 million won. A 500,000 won credit for marriage reduces it to 2.5 million won. One of the tips we could refer to is using the monthly rent tax credit, which allows non-home owning workers to claim a credit on rent paid for small or mid-sized homes valued at less than 400 million won. Eligibility applies to households with an annual salary of up to 80 million won, with a higher deduction rate of 17% for those earning 55 million won or less, and 15% for those earning between 55 million and 80 million won. 박준환, Arirang News.
Amid strong market conditions thanks to high demand for memory chips, Samsung Electronics reported a record high performance in the final quarter of 2025 for both operating profit and revenue. An Sung-jin breaks down the details.
South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics has posted an earnings surprise for the fourth quarter of 2025, with the strongest quarterly performance in the company's history. According to its preliminary fourth quarter earnings released on Thursday, earnings have surpassed market forecasts with a record-breaking operating profit of over 20 trillion Korean won, or $13.8 billion. This is up more than 208% from the same period a year earlier. It's also the first time a South Korean company has posted an operating profit exceeding 20 trillion won in a single quarter. Revenue also saw a record high, reaching 93 trillion won, or $65.3 billion, up by more than 22% compared to the previous year. As the earnings announcement approached, securities firms steadily raised their forecasts. This comes amid a broader semiconductor upcycle, where strong demand for memory chips is pushing prices sharply higher. Rising DRAM prices, strong market conditions for HBM or high bandwidth memory, and favorable foreign exchange effects have driven these record earnings. Samsung Electronics also increased its production share of HBM products and demonstrated competitiveness in the market. Though the official profit breakdown by business unit is yet to be disclosed, industry analysts say that the memory chip division would have shown a dramatic turnaround from losses a year earlier, accounting for more than 70% of the total operating profit. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The United States' surprise military operation in Venezuela last week continues to fuel reactions and varying responses around the world from America's allies to adversaries. We focus on the reactions and implications on the Korean Peninsula, and for this we have our correspondent Oh Seung with us in the studio. Welcome, Seung.
Great to be here.
So to dive right into it, so let's begin with North Korea, which reacted to the situation in Venezuela by criticizing the Trump administration. So what do you make of the response?
So, Sujin, if you look at the level of reaction that North Korea gave this time, it was actually quite restrained. The regime was quick to denounce the US's, quote, rogue and brutal nature and its violation of international laws. However, it did not elaborate on what had exactly occurred, merely calling it the Venezuelan situation without using terms like strikes or attack or even seizure. Also, it was not a comment by Kim Jong-un nor his outspoken sister Kim Yo-jong, nor was there a standalone foreign ministry statement. Instead, it came in the form of the foreign ministry spokesperson responding to a journalist's question. One expert says there's a reason for this.
North Korea seems to have adjusted the level of its response to the U.S. As a regime fundamentally opposed to the U.S., it couldn't remain silent, but it doesn't have major interests like China in criticizing the U.S.
So how is the regime looking at Venezuela? Does this pose concerns for Kim Jong-un?
Well, of course, we can only speculate with limited information to what degree Kim personally might feel threatened. But we can assume that Pyongyang observes other authoritarian leaders, how they interact and bargain with the United States in particular, and of course their ultimate fate. In the past, Kim has reportedly noted the case of Libya, the brutal death of the African country's former dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Now, Gaddafi had given up his nuclear weapons program in response to Western demands and was later brought down and killed by a domestic uprising. This reportedly served as a cautionary tale and justification for the North Korean leader in his pursuit of nuclear weapons. So in the Venezuelan case, where America captured a sitting leader based on highly precise intelligence, this would certainly trigger caution over Kim Jong-un's security detail, possible leaks and exposure to US intel. Maduro's arrest could also change strategic calculations on re-engaging with the US. If you remember Maduro's interview 48 hours before his capture, he told a Spanish journalist that he and Trump had last spoken very respectfully in November. He also said he's willing to discuss oil trade and open up to the US for investment, actually floating the idea of an agreement to combat drug trafficking. Then, of course, he found himself captured and standing trial in Trump's home city. So for Kim Jong-un, this might cause him to think twice about his interactions and potential negotiations with Trump. This would likely embolden his resolve to hold on to his nuclear weapons as his ultimate security guarantee so that he will not end up like Maduro, not like Gaddafi.
North Korea believes it is different from Venezuela. Venezuela has no nuclear weapons and no ICBMs, so it cannot retaliate. However, North Korea believes it has a clear deterrent, and thus the US would not dare touch North Korea. So there also seems to be a certain level of confidence, and that's why Kim is resuming his day-to-day activities. From his daily photos, his security protection doesn't seem to have increased just yet.
Then on New Year's Day, Kim Jong-un took Kim Ju-rae to Kumsusan Palace of the Sun and placed her in the exact central position where he himself should stand to pay respect to his father and grandfather.
This declares to his late grandfather Kim Il-sung and his father Kim Jong-il that his daughter will succeed him as the fourth leader of North Korea. It also symbolically signals this to the public. At the upcoming 9th Workers' Party Congress, there's quite a high chance that she will be given an official position corresponding to that of a successor.
So what else can we expect from the North's Party Congress?
Well, we're expecting the North Korean regime to set out its external or foreign policy for the next 5 years at its highest decision-making body, the ruling Workers' Party's 9th Congress. There we can expect Kim as chairman to declare the continuation of his policy of simultaneously developing nuclear and conventional forces and justifying that by strongly criticizing South Korea and the United States. There we may hear Kim Jong-un cite America's intervention in Venezuela to justify the need to further strengthen his nuclear forces.
But is there still a chance of Kim and Trump meeting?
Of course, chances are very slim, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. With President Trump expected to visit China in April, eyes are on whether Chinese leader Xi Jinping might be inspired to play the role of mediator and perhaps invite Kim Jong-un along.
North Korea is currently building hospitals across different regions, but it lacks essential medical equipment to put inside those hospitals. If China were to support North Korea with such urgently needed supplies and invite Kim to Beijing, that could naturally create an opportunity for Trump and Kim to meet.
President Lee Jae-myung this week has also agreed on the need to revive dialogue with Pyongyang during his talks with Chinese leader Xi. And this really does overwhelmingly depend on how motivated Beijing is to promote better relations between Pyongyang and Washington, as well as between the two Koreas.
As ever, let's wait and see. Thank you for coming in today, Seong.
Thanks for having me.
Team Korea is gearing up for a pivotal year on the global sporting stage, especially as the Winter Olympics draw near. And the push begins with the 2026 training commencement ceremony for national athletes held at Korea's main training center. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo has the story.
Sliding and gliding smoothly before accelerating as if it were an actual race. For these Korean national team athletes, slowing down is not an option as the clock keeps ticking, lap after lap, in pursuit of their goals.
I feel grateful to compete in my third Olympics alongside such great teammates. I'll give it my all once again, and with the skaters that I trust, we will show once more why Korea is a powerhouse in short track.
And it's not just the ice skaters who are shedding blood, sweat, and tears. Athletes from other disciplines, including curling, are also fully locked in, carrying bold ambitions of their own. That comes as mixed doubles curling is the very first match for Team Korea in the upcoming Winter Olympics.
We always review our matches. focusing more on the positives. That's helped us improve over time. We're confident we will win the first game, and a strong start will definitely boost the morale of the entire Korean team.
In about 30 days' time, these athletes will finally get the chance to show the world the effort they've poured in for months, possibly years, at the Winter Games in Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo for around 2 weeks. And that determination is on full display, as loud Team Korea chants filled the air during the 2026 training commencement ceremony held Wednesday at the Jincheon National Training Center in Central Korea. Athletes from a wide range of sporting disciplines, also including summer sports, gathered, reaffirming their resolve for the season ahead. With major international competitions lined up this year, including the Winter Games, Korea's sports ministry says expanded government support is on the way.
International competitions are major events that reflect a nation's global standing. The fair play and confident sportsmanship you show in competition make Korea a source of pride worldwide. Our ministry will continue to support you fully so that you can focus solely on training and turn all your dreams into reality.
While South Korea claimed 2 gold medals at the Beijing Winter Games 4 years ago, this time the country now aims to add at least 1 more, possibly from disciplines beyond its traditional ice sports strongholds. With just about a month to go until the Olympics begin, athletes will continue to train hard, carrying the determination they forged here, aiming to make the national anthem echo through arenas and help South Korea shine on the global stage. 박건우, Arirang News, Jincheon.
And that brings us to the end of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.